Blue steel, baby. Wagwan people, I'm KINGKHAN. I'm here with QUAKE Digital today. We're in the lovely Hackney Wick at a place called Roll Zero, and I'm gonna sip this coffee and tell you a little bit about what I do, who I am, all that good stuff. So I dropped an album recently. I've been working on that for quite a long time. I feel like as an artist, they always say that your first album is always the best because you've got so much time to put it together and you can spend as long as you want perfecting it and crafting it, and then once that's out, you've got to kind of like live up to that. But yeah, I dropped my first album just under a month ago now. It's called Happy to Be Here, and I got that title during the pandemic. I know a lot of people like to talk about pandemic and music, and it's a bit of a tired topic, but I felt like at the time during that, like people were so everybody was down and shit kind of sucked. Everyone was miserable. And something that kept coming into my head during the pandemic was like, hey, even though things are really rough, like I'm just happy to be here. And that's like what got me through the whole process. And that phrase just stuck with me. And I thought that's something that I think is a good message to put out into the music and to try and share that with other people. In that, you know, things can be really, really bad, but like quite lucky to be able to create things and, you know, get the feeling and the opportunities that comes with that. It's been a beautiful thing. 12 songs. They're kind of all over the place, like I described earlier. Like I've been in a lot of different bands and I've made like pretty much any genre under the sun, like I'm either into or I've made, like wrote a bit of it. I really wanted to like encapsulate that on this album. I've always been somebody who kind of like, even though I'm all over the place when I make a project, I always want it to be really cohesive and focused and sort of staying within one sound and one lane. But this was the first time where I allowed myself to embrace all of those different sounds and all those aspects and create whatever the hell I wanted to make. And then was like, once we've made that, then we can sit down and figure out how that's gonna work as a project. I put my album out now, it would have been a couple of weeks ago. It was a really, really long process from like starting the album to getting it out and getting it finished. A lot of different reasons behind that, but I think one that I really want to touch on is kind of like the personal and like mental health sort of side of things. When I started the album versus like when I was halfway through the process, like things had changed a lot for me. And I'd gone through something, so I was in a band called XL Life. I'm still in the band, but we're sort of on hiatus at the moment. And we were putting out an album via the band as well. So that put like a big pause on things for me for a while. I started working on the album back in like early 2020. And obviously it's 2023 now and it just came out. So there were a couple of points where I was going to put it out and stuff got in the way, and I'm being completely dead honest about it too. Like I just went through a really bad mental health period where I was really struggling with putting myself out there on being perceived by people, and I was quite comfortable and happy to be at home making the music and being creative and making stuff and showing it to my friends and showing it to people. But I got quite fearful about putting that out in front of people and how people would see me or how they'd feel about me. And I think that was a really tough process for me to get to the point where I was like, okay, I've got to stop thinking about that. And you know, it's important for me to like take that in and realize that my feelings are valid, but at some point the work has to be done, and that unfortunately / fortunately I'm the only person who can make that happen. Being on the other side of that now, it teaches you to really push through challenging times and to remind you that like the art is its own thing, the art is sacred, and regardless of like what you're going through and what point you're in, like the world deserves to have that. The world deserves to hear what you've got to offer, essentially. So if I had to give any advice to young creatives, is like, honestly, be patient with yourself. It took me 3 years to put this album out. You know, I'm so glad that I took the time to do it, and I took the time to look after myself and put me and my emotions first, because now that it's out, I'm in a point where I feel like I'm able to, you know, handle the things that come with it and to be able to back my work, to be able to put it out there and feel confident about it. So yeah. Speaking on inspirations for the album is a little bit more of a difficult question. I'm inspired by a lot of things all around the board. Like I said, I just really like music, and I think to confine myself to like one sound to listen to or one genre to sort of follow is just quite limiting. So my inspirations are all over the place. There's some artists that really like helped me to, let's say, figure out what I was going for this album and what direction I want to take it in. Off the front, first thing that comes to mind is Little Simz. Huge fan of Little Simz. I think she's the greatest artist to be coming out of the UK right now. I'm also always inspired by the Welsh music scene in itself. I think just being in a community that's full of people who are really hungry and want to go out and get it and want to show the world what they've got is just inspiring in itself, and gives me that feeling of like, okay, I'm going to go out there and do my version of things and put my version of things out there. But If I had to give any advice, it's just be inspired by everything, man. It doesn't have to be just music. Be inspired by like reading a book, looking at a piece of art, or just having a cool conversation with a friend. I think that helps the work and the creativity flow a little better. That's just my 2 cents on things, so thanks for having me. I've been King Khan. I'd like to thank QUAKE Digital for having me here today in the beautiful Hackney Wick. I'd like to tell all the creatives out there to just keep making stuff. Keep making the stuff that you think the world needs to see, and ignore the rest. Don't sweat the small stuff, just make it, put it out there. We're blessed to be able to do it. And on that note, I'm going to stare longingly into the distance and think about the future. So you're welcome to join me. Otherwise, goodbye. Have a beautiful day.